Thank you so much for the talk. It was so great. Very nice to meet you. You're now
Thank you.
you're now with the online part of the event. So hope you're excited to just answer some quick questions. And that was really exciting. And I just want to start by saying that I really appreciate the position, Twitter, of just like prioritizing honesty towards information. And that was a really cool talk. And also, super thank you for being awake so late at San Francisco. So yeah, thank you so much. That's really cool. I'm gonna ask you some questions that I have, and also people from the discussion tab here on the online platform have. And so actually,
Okay.
I have two questions that are kind of similar, so I'll just blend them together. But one person has asked if you can talk a little bit about how you handle the feedback, and how do you make sure you don't get caught up into it, right? Where is if your team has any shield like defending yourselves against the bad parts, like, and also there's another question that you can sort of adapt into that, where it's also how do you handle the tests in terms of how do you know when is it enough amount of people, right, in terms of quantity and also in terms of quality, like how when is it that you know that is a decent feedback for you to implement into your design process?
Yeah, those are both great questions. The first one, how do you handle feedback? I think you have to like have a bit of a not really tough skin, but know that that the people are your are your end user, and so to not take things personally, but to have an attitude of I'm going to make this better. And why we do so many iterations and why we generate so many concepts is that you never know. And I think one of the things that has kept me humble is that I think I know, and then I never do. And so
Right.
it's a very humbling and great process to just say, not to take it personally. And people aren't actually responding to you as the designer; they're just responding to the interface that they're seeing. So they're really just being honest. And so I think a lot of us just become very used to. In fact, we test so much that getting that feedback is part of our process. And then because Twitter is the way it is, you can actually see they'll just tweet stuff and you will have that real-time feedback. And Twitter, it can be very real, and I think that's okay. Like, that's really good for us to hear. So we get a lot of comments on Twitter design, and we go through them. And I actually want to start co-designing with people on our platform, to the point where they can actually help us figure out what are the tools that you want that we can help build. um, I don't know. I hope I answered the question.
No, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
That kind of does
I,
actually. Yeah, that kind of does. That's super interesting to
okay.
hear. Um, yeah, and the other thing I was thinking that would be actually really interesting to hear from you is um, how like I noticed how that specific approach to articles, right? And I think that particularly for me, I always think about like other types of media, right? So I think that might include like video and other stuff that people can link to, right? Other sources that are not only articles. So I was just interested to know if the team thinks about a similar kind of system of flagging things, or at least doing the same system as sort of like, you know, uh, warning people about this topic in other media, if that makes sense.
You mean like with videos, not just articles, with other
Exactly.
types of,
Like other, yeah, yeah, other stuff. Yeah.
yeah, we are. We're actually thinking about it for video, and we're thinking about it for leveraging it for, any sort of any sort of external source. So it could be a video, or people sharing,
Right.
say, a YouTube thing, or even photo. Like, well, photo you don't really have to read, but making sure that people actually consume, or like know what they're sharing, because a lot of people just see something and they share it out really quickly.
Right.
Other things that we're doing with prompts that we've been testing is, if we, outside of a URL, if we notice that we're actually we're building our ML models to look at more what you would call like abusive tweets, and actually asking people to rethink if they're sending something that we think might actually be really mean or abusive to somebody else. And so we're kind of trying to use this this model around not just for information sharing, but even for other aspects of Twitter that aren't even part of misleading information.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that reply. Just want to let you know that like I see some comments here in the platform, and a lot of people are like saying thank you for your presentation. And I'll read specifically one that says from Fernando says, "Thank you, Anita. A very inspiring inspiration. I learned a lot with your experience, and the misleading information is a topic that worries me in nowadays." So I guess it worries us all. But it's really good to see such a big platform. I personally use Twitter a lot too, but it's really interesting to see the stance, right? Like where we, like I said in the beginning, it's really important to take that position, like to take the stance of, hey, you know, sometimes the quality of information and the reality of information is really important. And I guess that can also link to another question, whereas, you know, I'm really interested to know the conflict of sometimes Twitter wants to provide reach. And you said in your talk that sometimes the consequences of tagging and to reporting that information is that sometimes the reach isn't as much, right? Of course, that applies specifically to those type of news, right? But I'm very interested to know in your design team, like the conflict, just the conversations between the reason not to do that based on how sometimes, of course, Twitter wants people to have more reach, to have their voice sort of heard. So how do you feel like, how do you think that conflict was, or if it did exist at all, did it exist too much?
You mean like people will be upset because we're like minimizing their reach because they might be sharing something that's misleading or misinformed?
Yeah, just the fact that the information is going to be taken more into consideration. Right? I come from a world where I think it's not necessarily from my spectrum, from like news that can be true or not, but like a lot of people study the algorithm slowly. Say artists, say developers, so like they slowly study it, and there is an effect to sort of reading these messages and making sure that everything is cool and good to go, and that might affect reach somehow. So just interested to know the insights of how do you take that into consideration when making these kind of decisions.
Yeah, I mean, we want people to be able to reach the audiences that they want to reach, but at the same time, we also know that if they're you know, sharing something that's harmful or that's misleading, that we have a saying, you can have freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. Mm-hmm. And so basically, you can say what you want, but that doesn't mean you automatically get a huge megaphone on Twitter for it, especially if it's content that we know is misleading and is harmfully misleading. So I think we also have stronger opinions and interventions when we think that this could cause societal harm or this could be really harmful to even a single individual, versus if it's, you know, silly or not as harmful, we are less concerned about it. But we do kind of have this mantra internally that, you know, I think people think, well, this is my right. I come on this platform and I should be able to reach millions of people. And that's true, but if you're misusing that's not like a right that you are just automatically given.
Yeah, that's a great point. Anita, thank you so much. I won't keep you that long. I know it's late up there, so we really appreciate you taking your time. It's so sweet of you. And personally, for me, the talk was super inspiring. And yeah, it was great to hear your insight. It was great to hear technical details. I feel like there was a little bit of everything. There was a little bit of technical. There's a little bit of design decisions in general, just in terms of how Twitter is perceived. So thank you so much. And yeah, and hope that you can sleep well and hopefully catch up later to other talks that might be interesting in design matters. Because we're you know like
yeah.
And yeah, do you like have something that you want to share with people that are watching you online right now? Something that you might find interesting, or just say goodbyes or anything?
Oh, now you put me on the spot. I just want to thank everyone. I I've really enjoyed this whole process working with Design Matters, and I really wish I could be there and meet everyone and hang out. And so I'm hoping, in the future that will be a reality for me. But I don't have any pearls of wisdom except, I guess, one thing that I've noticed working on health at Twitter is to have a conviction and have a strong opinion. There's a lot of, especially in the space, and even, people asking questions, people have all sorts of opinions about what Twitter or what these platforms should do. And I think having a strong opinion as a designer is really important, and to be able to express that. So that would be it's not very funny or anything, but that would be my nugget of wisdom, I guess, that I would say.
Super appreciate it. Thank you so much, Anita. We'll see you sometime in the future.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And we'll be back in a bit for the next interview. Thank you, Anita.
Okay, bye.
Bye.